by 1871, Hub 88, which is of course part of 1871 now, and Inspire Tech. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Betsy Ziegler. I'm the CEO of 1871, and I am really excited for tonight's discussion, learning about, talking about, digging into the details about how technology is shaping the shopping experience from all angles. The panel, who you'll get a chance to meet in a few minutes, will go into depth on how companies are using customer behavior to create a more efficient and sustainable practice to improve online retail. They're going to cover a wide variety of topics: the changing retail landscape, the concept of frictionless retail, how to think about the solutions that improve both B2B and B2C experiences, digital twin, Web3. Some of you were in the conversation last month, deep dive on Web3, and of course the future of shopping. Now, some of you might be new to our monthly Tech Talks. They happen every month except for July and December. They are an extraordinary opportunity to learn from experts in the space. Please take advantage of the fact that you've got these experts in front of you. There's going to be Q&A, time for Q&A. You can put the questions in the chat. Kate, our moderator, and Lori will reinforce how you can engage with this panel. But this is your chance, right? You'll hear them in dialogue, but it's your chance to really probe to make sure you're getting out of this experience what you need in order to inform the decisions you're making going forward in your business or your environment. The Tech Talks were originated with Hub 88 and the Hub 88 leadership team and advisor group. When Hub 88 became part of 1871, it became very clear that this was one of those extraordinary assets and experiences that we now had the opportunity to continue and to expand. And so we've shifted from Wednesday nights to Thursday nights. It's the second Thursday of every month, except again for July and December. You can set your calendar by it. And really, I learn so much every single time. Before we begin and before I hand the mic, so to speak, over, I want to thank Lori Swanson in particular. Lori led the Tech Talks under the Hub 88 structure, and now she is the volunteer director for the Tech Talks under the new structure, and she has a team. Lori is the CPC and CEO of Inspire Tech, and if you are excited to be featured on a future Tech Talk, or if you have an idea for a future Tech Talk, please reach out to Lori via email. She'll put her email in the chat here in a minute or two. I'd like to thank our tonight's experts who will be introduced shortly. And if you want to participate in other 1871 events, some of you might have been part of our IWD International Women's Day celebration earlier this week. We always have stuff going on. Feel free to go to 1871.com/events. You can sign up for a free newsletter. It's sent to you every week. You know what's up. So with that, Lori, CEO and founder of Inspire Tech, she is at the center of tech recruiting, tech career coaching for women in tech and in tech adjacent careers. Phenomenal partner to 1871, phenomenal thought leader who always has these brilliant ideas for topics to engage on, and then just really leverages her network to bring the best to bear for all of our benefit. Lori, as always, thank you. Can't do this without you. And with that, I will hand the mic to you.
Thank you, Betsy, and thank you for, I know you're down with COVID, so thank you for that introduction. It was very clear, and I'm always excited after I hear you introduce all of this, because these Tech Talks really are fun and interesting, and it's just a joy to be a part of it. I also need to thank my team, Ramin Narasimha and Nancy Monroe, who have been with me almost, Nancy all the way and Ramin for much of our Hub 88 and into our transition here at 1871, supporting not only, topic ideas, I love to take all the credit, but no. Topic ideas, build, using their networks, building panels. None of this happens without them. So, and we actually are having a call next week because we've had a couple people, 3 now, I think, that are interested in joining our and building out these panels with us. So if you are interested, I'm going to pop my email, as well as you can just chat me up here. If you are interested in being part of this volunteer committee, we love to have you. And I also am going to ask you in chat, what are topics, future, emerging tech topics that you would want to see us put panels together for? We're always looking for their, cool participants and interesting tech talk topics. So feel free to email me, or again, put it in chat here today. And so just to sort of tease what we're doing for next month, which would be Thursday, April 14th, the second Thursday, as Betsy mentioned, 5 o'clock, as always, 5 to 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And our topic next month is What's Now and What's Next? The Acceleration of Digital Learning Technologies. So we're really going to be talking about the external pressures that have been reshaping organizational learning function, Zoom fatigue, and the challenge of engaging learners and keeping employees engaged, especially in a tight job market, especially in tech. And then, of course, what's now and what's next: AI, chatbots, blockchain, NFTs, and Web 3.0. So, I look shortly after this talk, you'll see the event registration up on 1871.com//events, and register there, because that's where things happen. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Kate Schaefer. I've known Kate for a number of years. She and my sister played club soccer together. And so, and my parents and her parents basically ran the team. And so she's been a part of our family for a few years, just a few years. She's married, 2 kids, and she loves do-it-yourself projects, travel, and baking. She's also a full-time faculty member in the Fashion Studies Department of Columbia College Chicago. And prior to teaching, she worked throughout the fashion industry, including roles in visual merchandising for Nordstrom, Coach, and Mark Schale. She did wholesale sales, retail events, promotions, and promotional marketing. She's spoken at national and international conferences, contributed to fashion publications, and authored the textbook Swipe, Scan, Shop, Interactive Visual Merchandising, which is very apropos to what we're talking about today, with her master's from DePaul in business administration and her bachelor's from Indiana University. Kate, which is, you might find surprising, but she eats something chocolate every day, but has never eaten a Pop-Tart. How is that possible? How is that possible? So without further ado, let me introduce Kate Schaefer.
All right. Hey, Lori. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Lori, for that introduction.
You're welcome.
You learned a lot about me. A couple of fun facts thrown in alongside with how I spent my days, both professionally and personally. I am hoping I can keep my 6-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son out of the room while we are going over our panel discussion. So fingers crossed on that. But I am really excited about tonight's conversation and the panelists that we have. We are going to be looking at the retail industry and how digital technologies are accelerating the more efficient shopping experience and connecting with customers in more engaging ways. There's a lot of exciting things happening, and as you can imagine, the last 2 years of the pandemic really accelerated a lot of these digital technologies. although many were already in place prior to COVID. For some companies, it was the idea of right place, right time. And I think we'll hear some of that from the panelists that we have here with us today. So I will not take up any more of your time, and I will allow the panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves. So we have Asna Khan from FitMatch, we have Melissa McNally from Touche, we have Adam Wisniewski from EX3 Labs, and Steve McLean from Ready Set. So Asna, if you would like to start out with our introductions.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for having me today. My name is Asna Khan. As mentioned, I'm the head of FitMatch for the product space. And over the last 10 years, I've really been focused on product development and product design from a digital asset management perspective. I come with multiple years of experience within the financial services sector as well as the pharmaceutical sector. So now is just a transition into, bringing that customer experience, the customer life, the customer journey to the retail industry. So really excited to be here and talk to you guys today about technology in the retail space.
Thank you. And I'll just kind of go across my screen. Steve, you are next.
Awesome. Again, thank you for having me. Excited to participate. I'm Steve, CEO of Ready Set. We are a virtual reality platform that enables our manufacturing and retail clients to design, build, and test, as in research, within a single ecosystem to provide predictive analysis of how retail solutions are going to perform in the real world, and digital augmentation in the real world. So thanks again. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Adam.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Wisniewski. I'm the CEO and founder of EX3 Labs. We're an experience design and digital innovation firm, and super excited to be here today. My background is in both user experience design and development. I spent most of my career advising Fortune 1000 organizations, specifically in retail, CPG, financial services, manufacturing, and healthcare. And super excited to be here.
All right, thank you, Adam. And last but not least, Melissa McNally.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa McNally. I'm a brand marketer. I've spent 20 years in the fashion industry, having the pleasure of working for such brands as Nautica, Ralph Lauren, and Hugo Boss. I'm currently on the advisory board for a fashion tech startup. So we're in the startup stages, but basically the idea of our application is a social shopping app. We're looking to bring together a community of fashion lovers to engage and discover fashion as art, be able to shop socially with friends, and to be able to share those experiences, really creating experiences online, bringing what we've all known in brick and mortar and bringing it to the online platform.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks again to our panel for agreeing to be here and to share their experiences and what they are working on, so that our audience has an idea of the various ways that technology is influencing both B2B and B2C retail operations. So we can go ahead and get started. The overarching theme for all of our panelists and their companies is the role that they play in our new retail environment, which oftentimes is referred to frictionless retail. So today specifically, we are going to be looking at the changing retail landscape. We're going to look at what frictionless retail is. We will introduce tech solutions that improve both business to business and business to consumer experiences. And lastly, we will look at digital twin, Web 3.0, and the future of shopping. We will show you specific technologies that are on the market or forthcoming. We'll talk about data privacy, which is always at the top of mind. And we will consider how brands and consumer perspectives are driving some of these changes. So we know that businesses across all industries are working to remove barriers for customers, and we see that retail is no different. So the 4 businesses that we have with us today are going to address the role that they play to remove friction throughout the shopping experience. So to get us started, we will look at how these businesses are removing obstacles in the retail environment. So the first question will keep really pretty broad and look at the changing retail landscape. We know that the retail environment has been ripe for change for many years. It's been really stagnant, and we are ready to see some changes. And we've been lucky enough to experience some really dramatic shifts in retail. So, for our panelists, in what ways has the retail landscape changed over the last several years? And this can be looking at, specifically a result of COVID, or this can be, operations that were in place pre-COVID, as we saw some of these digital technologies being integrated already.
Sure, I can definitely go first here. So the retail landscape definitely has changed in many ways. Even if you take COVID to the side for a moment, really understanding how consumers are buying, their behavior and the purchasing power they have at their fingertips has significantly come a long way. If we talk about Amazon, for example, just being a trailblazer on how they came to market with Amazon Prime, right? So the expectation that now consumers are purchasing, but they have to be able to kind of get that purchase or whatever the asset that they want within a 2-day time period. And given that, so many retailers, right, had followed suit to allow for this quick adaptation, this quick expectation that, the purchasing power has changed. And how do we adapt to that now? With these expectations that consumers have, we need to update our business processes and our enhancements to make sure that we are also being competitive and ensuring that we can get to the marketplace and get to the consumers as quick as possible. Now, if you actually add COVID in, I also think that actually brought a lot more of the, personalization, and consumers are more willing to talk about what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with, right? So now allowing for 6 feet distance, allowing for just being able to shop and drive up to a location and getting their groceries put in their cart. These are allowing for customers to raise their hand on preference and say, I'm not comfortable with this path, so you need to offer different mechanisms for me to continue to shop at your stores. And you can see across the board, a lot of companies have adapted. Right now, you can go to Target, you can go to Amazon, you can go to Whole Foods. There's just different retailers in this space that are allowing you to do that. And now actually even talking about the mall experience, right? So there's still that experience where you do want to go into the mall and have that, walking time and go around to different fitting rooms and stores, but you still have the capability of being, delivered to your car or trying to do a 2-day shipment. So overall, I think our space in the retail industry has completely changed, and a lot of companies are following suit, and it's just something that we need to be realistic and adapt to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
In addition to that, if I could add, I think when you really look back in time about retail, it was going to the general store, right, and getting your purchases and getting the town gossip. And then, as we evolved over time, going to malls was about, in the 70s and 80s, about that whole entertainment around shopping, having movie theaters, bringing in ice skating rinks, having promotions and events, partnering with installations and having things going on, and it really being a family and friends environment. I think what's really interesting today with us shopping online is the isolation of that. Very easy point and click for your toilet paper and your toothpaste, but how do you or how do brands really create those connections and the loyalty with customers if they're not coming into their stores, right? So back in the day, you knew Mr. Smith behind the counter. Today, as you go into a mall, you might know your salesperson, you might have a relationship, but more the brands spend so much time and money on the environment. There's scent pumped into the stores, there's flowers, fresh flowers, there's service, there could be beverages, there's music. All of those things give you a sense of what that brand is, what they're trying to convey, what their messaging is, and creates loyalty. When you go behind a screen and you look at clothes, fashion specifically, that being my background, it's very isolating and it's very mechanical. So really, I think our challenge going forward is creating those experiences and creating those connections with customers online. How do you make it social, make it fun, have it engaging, have it as a pastime versus a I need shorts, it's getting warm, let me click and buy shorts. So it's a much different way of having that customer journey and the way consumers are their shopping behavior is today.
Yeah, and so Melissa, that's a great point. The retail environment, I'll say pre-COVID, we were really seeing a lot of experiential retail, which is often also referred to as retailtainment, because it is combining, the retail environment with forms of entertainment. So it's less about the physical product and more about engaging and building relationships. So, I'd like to ask both Steve and Adam about their companies both do a lot with AR, VR, and looking at how AR, VR are being incorporated into the retail environment as a form of entertainment, or as Melissa talked about, a point of connection. So are we seeing AR, VR within the retail environment in that way?
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
I was just going to say, I think we're definitely seeing an uptick in the emerging technology adoption. Augmented reality is definitely becoming much more mainstream, especially in the home. And I think we saw it a little bit pre-COVID, but especially with the scenarios of being able to superimpose a sofa, let's say, in a living room to see how it would look and how items would look and feel in your home. I think we definitely are seeing scenarios where virtual reality, there's been an uptick. I think one of the challenges that is presented with a lot of emerging technologies that COVID helped sped up is the barrier for entry in terms of the learning curve. A lot more content is being thrown in front of people. And in fact, Forbes mentioned in late 2020 that online content consumption has doubled. So we still have these information overload scenarios, but how can people decompress? And apps like Calm, that from a meditation perspective, helped introduce people to VR in a way that made it more approachable and comfortable. And I think we've seen retailers take advantage of that level of comfort that users have in that additional free time that people have by maybe not having to commute to work if they happen to work from home. So it's an exciting time in retail, and I think one of the things that's probably most promising is the ability for AR and VR to create immersive experiences and one day eventually allow people to have a complete end-to-end frictionless experience through the use of emerging tech.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think there are a couple of things to navigate to Adam's point. One is removing friction to adoption, as you mentioned on that side. That's going to be the responsibility of removing, inherent friction in the tech and kind of decoupling the experience from a complex hardware array, right? And that's about where we are kind of from a reality in space and on the hype cycle. But the volume of investment going into, namely the VR space, and the names of the players spending that cash are rapidly accelerating that. I think the other interesting thing to think about in this space is, from how retail can play in this space, COVID was really an accelerator. We all talk about how, what's this sort of increment of leap forward in consumer behavior in the digital space that was, where COVID was a catalyst for this, right? But I think the other thing that's really equally important is what were the technology and logistics and distribution, investments that were made on the part of retail that lay the foundation for some of these extended capabilities that would be really slow to implement, and most importantly, that retailers wouldn't be interested in investing in at the scale they're investing now, right? So now what used to be maybe a novel idea now fits in with a big investment infrastructure and makes more sense and fits budgets as they're allocated on the retail side. And lastly, I think what gets overlooked a lot is what relief does that provide for the physical store to become more of what it was, to Melissa's point, right? How can physical retail bring more emotion into play? How can it become less about this warehouse of maximizing cubic or square footage within this box and be more of a series of informational vignettes where brands can be celebrated or services can be celebrated, and where we can make emotional connections that resonate with us and create experiences that we want to repeat, right, at the end of the day. Because, the tactical things about mere acquisition of goods and pantry filling are sort of they've been solved other ways.
Yeah, and Steve, I think this is a good time for me to show the video that you shared. So I'll just to allow our audience to get a better handle on maybe what VR might look like in the retail environment. And then after we show the short video, Steve, if there's anything you want to add, this might be a good time for that. So let's see if this will work. All right, so hopefully you can all see my screen. Oh. All right, so I understand that the sound did not work, so my apologies. I heard some great music. I'm sorry the rest of you did not. But Steve, if you want to take a couple minutes and just talk about what we just saw in the video and how that relates to a little bit what you were talking about with the VR.
Sure, exactly. So the role we play really both from our manufacturer and retail clients is, we've transitioned from a world in which we come up with an idea and we take that through the testing in a real world scenario, and that's how we ascertain or get some sense of performance, right? We design something, we design something, we build it, we put it in store, we measure against control. That's a lengthy process, that's a costly process. And really what you have to do is sell that idea into the retailer on speculative merits, right? You don't have accompanying data or some strong sense of ROI on that. You're really kind of testing on the fly, right? And because it's physical, a lot of it's clunky and it's nuanced and there's multi-stage. Really what the retail and manufacturing world demands now is if something's going to be implemented, they want to know how it's going to perform before it ever happens, right? They want a time machine, like we all do in our lives. But at the end of the day, in order to sell the concept, that concept better be accompanied by some sense of lift, some sense of improvement to conversion, some sense of category performance associated with that idea. Because retail's slow moving for the most part and very expensive to scale ideas across, right? And so, and there are a lot of voices demanding attention for what the future of retail looks like, and the value it brings to the consumer. So really, at the end of the day, what we try to do is build a single ecosystem with a shared asset philosophy, where the retailer and manufacturer community can design, build, and instantly migrate into tests for predictive analysis, such that you know exactly how an idea is going to perform, because both the conscious and subconscious behaviors that we're replicating in the VR space are virtually synonymous with physical world behaviors. So you can get good predictive analysis and know what a thing is going to do when you sell it.
And Kate, if I could just add one additional point, because there was a question in the chat from Katie Osborne around the VR and emerging technology on the sustainability side. And what Steve's mentioned is such an important point, because these technologies do have the ability to reduce waste. I mean, think about signage alone, right? How many signs are you inundated with when you walk into a retail store? In some cases, just walking straight by it and it's not having a huge effect. Scenarios of the predictive analytics around inventory, right? If you have a series, if you go to an eye doctor, you see a series of frames that are sitting in a retail store ready to be purchased, but if they're never purchased, they were essentially created in essentially our waste. So how do we more intelligently predict consumer behaviors, wants, and needs, and make sure that we're planning accordingly in an intelligent way that increases sustainability and reduces the amount of waste created? I think it's a powerful concept.
Yeah, I think the idea of sustainability is obviously a really important topic right now. It's been a hot topic in the fashion industry for quite a while. And, you know, we are taking steps in the right direction, but we still have a ways to go. And I think the abundance of technology, you know, we all know that it's made shopping so much easier. You know, with the click of a button or simply talking to our Amazon, our Echo Show, we can have an Amazon order show up on our doorstep, within minutes. But, that has unfortunately aided in the idea of the fashion industry, not operating in a sustainable fashion, as consumers are, ordering, discarding, mailing back, throwing away. But, I think for what FitMatch is doing, I think they are really helping these sustainability efforts and reducing the amount of products that customers are ordering and making sure that we're ordering the right things that are going to fit us appropriately. Asna, do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. And for those of you who don't really understand what FitMatch is, or if you want to play the video or keep the video, I think that would really help, and then I can kind of talk through that as well. But basically, we are an AR 3D algorithm-based technology that allows a user to get scanned, where we create a 3D avatar of them, and we allow them to see products based on certain brands that they work with. So currently we actually launched by Savage by Fenty in their stores. So if you were to go into that experience, you can actually get scanned in the fitting room, and our app will show you what are the products that fit you, right? So now we talk about scalability. Imagine in today's society, if you're going and shopping online and you're ordering, sometimes you don't know what your sizes are, right? So you'll order a medium, you'll order a large, and you'll get everything shipped to the house, and then you return the ones that don't fit, right? So taking a bigger step or a bigger approach to it, what really happens to all that cloth and the wastage that's happening in the world out there with all the returns? What do brands or customers or clients do today with it? And a lot of that stuff is unknown. So what we try to do is really focus in on, being able to allow a consumer to get that perfect fit. We take the 3D avatars, we really focus on shape. We really try to understand how your body matches to the products in the market and how we can actually service you to get that accurate shape, as opposed to you having an unwanted customer experience and going through this path of processing and returns, and then, really just trying to mitigate all those issues that come with it from the client side of the house.
And so I will go ahead and share a video that Asna put together, and I think I will be successful with the sound this time around. So Bear with me for just a second. Right. All right, I think that video does a really great job of showing what FitMatch does. And as I watch the video, it makes me really excited to, to feel like my online shopping experience is going to be more successful. I think one thing that we've all been looking at over the last couple of years is how COVID has changed consumer behavior. And, one thing I just touched on is the idea that much more online shopping, whether it was out of necessity or it was out of convenience. But we all know, for a while, visiting a brick and mortar store just wasn't an option. And even now, there are some retailers that still don't have fitting rooms open. And so people are buying multiple products and then figuring out what to do with what doesn't fit. And it's also frustrating from a consumer perspective to go into different retailers or shop different brands and find that everything fits so differently. So, Melissa, I'd maybe like to hear your perspective on how it could be both generationally and just sort of across the board consumer behavior and how it's been impacted by COVID.
Yeah, I FitMatch is amazing. And I think as you speak to, I actually had the pleasure of meeting Kate in that I was working with one of her classes on a project and got to do some focus groups with her students. And, one of the biggest pain points in shopping online is fit. And was something that came up in her class, but in my career, we've heard it for years, right? As more people went online shopping, it's really about fit, and each brand, each designer has different sizing, and whether that's numerical sizing or SML, it is very, very different. So the idea of fit being solved through technology is one of the most exciting things happening in retail today. And whether that is having your avatar and it comes with you through each brand as more brands participate. If you could have a fit avatar, one day is that avatar also wearing the branded NFTs. I mean, the sky is really the limit when we bring retail and tech together. But major pain points really being fit that we've got to solve. And the fit part, like Kate mentioned, really goes hand in hand with sustainability and how much excess, and not just the excess of returns. Brands have figured out, right, how to take care of those returns, but just think about all the shipping and all the emissions and all. I mean, the packaging, it just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies as you think about it.
Yeah, and from FitMatch perspective, we're really excited to come to the market with new and innovative things, right? So right now we have a use case where, Savage by Fenty wants it specifically in fitting rooms, right? But as we talk to our future clients, including Fabletics, they're ones who actually want it in the home. Right? So imagine now, you can actually go and create your own 3D avatar in your kitchen or in your living room, and being able to upload those measurements, and you keep them for yourself. But then, our future state is exactly what you said, Melissa. So imagine logging into an experience and you know that 4 or 5 brands that you are very loyal to will show your matches and your sizes just by having that one avatar scan. And that's really where we want to go with the future of this. I think one thing that's significant is a lot of individuals take a step back and think it's just technology, but I think what the core of our heart is, the main people that have actually developed and designed this solution are, head of operations and head of retail, and they were actually, fitters, and they understand how cloth works, and they understand measurements and shape. So the staff that we actually have that actually makes this come to life are everyday retail, individuals that are in those stores. So we try to bring it to life as best as we can, and I really think this is where tech can help, and this is where we want to lead in this space.
And Asna, to piggyback on that, we have a question in the chat that says, how often is the avatar updated, and is there an annual schedule for scanning?
That's a great question. So you can actually get scanned anytime you want. So for example, I've gotten scanned 10 times in the last month. And that's really because I like to see the cool avatar aspect of it. But ideally what would happen is if you go into a store today and you get scanned, your measurements and your shape and everything, the data that we have for you is actually stored within your profile, right? And in future thinking, if you feel as though you're comfortable with those sizes, those measurements, you don't necessarily need to get scanned again. If you feel as though you've gone through a life-changing event, if you had a baby, or if you're pregnant, and if you feel the need to actually go in and, re-look at different types of clothing that you want to wear, then you can go in and get scanned. There's no scheduling that's required. Right now, it is based on the clients that are coming to market with it. But if you live for example, in Houston or in Vegas or Culver City, LA, and you want to go stop by a Savage by Fenty, you can definitely do that, and you can walk right in right now and get scanned. So it's definitely one of those experiences we're trying to bring to the market, or we're trying to expand it out through the brands. But one day you'll be able to also do it in your own homes. But there's no timetable around how often you can get scanned. You can get scanned as much as you would like.
Okay. Thank you, Asna, and thank you, Tamara, for that question. So, through these discussions so far, we have been looking at really solutions that these businesses or these companies have offered in the retail landscape as it relates to technology. I would love to hear, we know that COVID has had an impact on, every business on a global scale. For some it's been timely and it's been beneficial, I hate to say, and for others it's obviously been quite detrimental. So I would love to hear from each of you what impact COVID has had on your business, and then also looking at long term, has COVID shaped future iterations of what you hope to do, or what you are already doing?
I can go first. So COVID, I think a lot of us think, there are interesting parts of COVID that I guess generate or make us think about future opportunities, or maybe change the way, we look at our invention to factor in significant behavioral change, right? Or just, mandated or legislated conditions of the world that we really weren't expecting when we started out, right? And so at the end of the day, I think for us, it's pros and cons, right? Cons are, as Adam can surely attest, virtual reality is a very experiential thing, right? That's the value it provides. It's that transportive effect of leaving a space and entering a new space and really forgetting about the physical space you occupy and being captivated. Well, that's a difficult thing to describe if you can't go see clients and meet with them and say, hey, trust me, it's really cool, So there's that aspect of really trying to sell and socialize your value proposition in an experiential fashion. However, the flip side of virtual is it can solve a lot of problems when we're not allowed to be standing next to one another, right? And help to maintain workflows, collaborative workflows between people who used to rely on the physical space to participate collectively in how jobs get done or how deadlines get met, thresholds are achieved, whatever way you want to look at it. So for us, it was really about reacting quickly to inbound demands of the marketplace to say, hey, they don't know the nuanced nature of our product. They just know we're known for virtual, and virtual can solve physical problems. So how can you quickly purpose your tool or develop tangential benefits to your tool to solve the problems that I have now that I didn't expect? And so it kind of cuts both ways, for us at least.
Well, and I think, Adam, it was probably 3 or so years ago, I brought a class of mine over to 1871, and we used, we were immersed in the tech lab, and you talked a lot about how AR, VR is being used for store planning and design purposes. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely, and that's one of the strongest use cases that we see is that space planning. We see a lot of organizations downsizing a bit from a retail footprint perspective, and that comes with evaluating how to more intelligently use the space that you're migrating to. Another interesting use case that a little bit less on the consumer side, but more on the workforce side, and the unfortunate truth is related to the effects of COVID, is when the economy is down, more crime happens. We had a client of ours come to us, and they said a lot of their retail stores were being burglarized and there was robberies taking place. We were able to use VR to create a training simulation for the stock clerks to help them in terms of simulating what would happen in the event of a robbery. Very unfortunate circumstance, but something you certainly can't prepare for. But training in a VR in a way to immerse yourself in it certainly helped that. And I remember putting it on for the first time, and we rented out a convenience store, and we kind of did full simulation. And I remember the stock clerks trying it on for the first time, their palms sweating, going through this experience because it helped prepare them. So a little bit off from a consumer topic, but nevertheless, the effects of COVID certainly have changed people's mindset about not only how they shop, but how retailers train their staff and make sure that they're preparing for situations, including things like interactions with customers. We've seen a lot of uptick in violent behavior in lines because people are not wearing masks. People are confrontational as a result of that. So using VR and emerging technologies to simulate those environments and those difficult scenarios is certainly something we've seen a lot of.
Oh, I didn't really think of the simulation, but it is unfortunate. There has been a huge jump in crime. So great example of that. And Esna, I know FitMatch was around pre-COVID, and it really, you are one of the companies I think of that, all of the research and planning came to be kind of right place, right time.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned, COVID has impacted all the businesses out there, right? So it's really about how we adapt to that, right? Because it's a new way of life. When we look at the customer base today, some of the exciting things, and many of us know, is if you go into a fitting room experience and say, for example, you're trying on intimates or you're trying on a bra, golden age, and still a lot of stores today will actually take a tape measure and they'll get very close to you and they'll physically try to measure you out. That has changed for people. Some people don't feel comfortable about that, and that's why they're ordering or just purchasing without knowing. Within a study that we conducted ourselves, over 80% of women, or roughly 80% of women, do not wear the right bra. taking that extent further, Adidas actually came out with a quote as well, where they found that 90% of women wear the wrong sports bra. So it really comes down to really feeling comfortable and making sure that those measurements are accurate, but they're also comfortable with it now. So now when you're going into that experience and scanning your body, even if you decide to go into a fitting room, you still have that comfortable space between you and an associate or someone to allow for that scanning. And now, as we extend into, our next few iterations, allowing for that self-scan, allowing to be by yourself and do that full scan, but at the same time, you can still have a great experience. You could still match with the right products. You could still, even do it in the center of your home, or if you chose to do it at a store. So I feel like COVID definitely has shifted since, the launch of our stores. In today's day and age, but as we think forward, it only accelerated what consumers want in today's society, and is to really own that purchasing power again, and do it in an environment that's comfortable for them.
Yeah, and I think in a different way, we look at how COVID has impacted the way that we shop. Shopping has always been a social activity, however you define social, if that means going to the mall with your friends, if that means FaceTiming with friends, sharing images, looking on social media for inspiration. And I think the social shopping app is addressing, another shift in consumer behavior and looking at, consumers still want that social element, but it may not be face-to-face, and it may not be in a physical retail location. So, Melissa, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We were working on, like I mentioned earlier, we're a startup, and when we were working on Touche prior to COVID, but COVID just amplified it, right? Because so many people were, starting to shop online, and then it just exploded because we had no other choice. So it just amplified the necessity for an application like Touche. And, we're hoping to really bring community together and have that social experience and be able to shop with your friends, shop with your family. We're focused on fashion, but like Adam or Steve had mentioned, home furnishings as well. Like, as people, we're seeing, I'm here in New York City, as so many people have migrated out of the city from apartments into homes, all of home goods shopping, and people want advice and want support from friends and family. They're big purchases. Furnitures are larger purchases, and people take a step back and might want their partner, their mom, their sister, whoever, to help them. Is this the right rug? Does this rug go with this couch? However it may be. So I think there's just really a lot of room for tech and fashion to come together to really create those unique experiences online.
And we've talked a lot about all the really great things that each of these companies are doing, and I think oftentimes that's we see as as consumers or users of technology, we see kind of end result. And these companies are all doing really amazing things that are really impacting the way that we shop, and also the way that retailers or businesses operate. But I would love to hear some of the challenges that each company ran into. As you identified pain points in the retail environment, you saw a void in the marketplace, and you were working towards addressing that. But there's obviously hiccups and obstacles along the way. So I'd love if you could share what maybe some of those obstacles have been that you have run into over the years.
I can start because we're sort of in the middle of it. Like Steve mentioned with VR, and that companies, want to know the results before they even bring your product onto the shelves. How well you're going to do, are you going to be profitable? And that VR can help with that. For us, we're in the raising fund stage, and it is how do you show proof of concept, and so to be able to show proof of concept, we're currently working on a proto, and it's like, okay, well then once you have a proto of this application, how do you get people to use it without it being really out there? It's just in beta stage. So that's really as we started to partner with fashion schools, right? We're trying to create a community of fashion lovers, and what better place but to partner with fashion schools? So, and partnering with Kate and Columbia, partnering with FIT in New York City, and a couple other fashion schools across the country to really get an idea of are students interested in this? Is this an application they would use? How would they use it? And then having them actually test it in beta and get their feedback so we can make those changes before we bring it fully to market.
Yeah, thank you.
From my perspective, there's been, I guess it's definitely a different way of looking at it, but when I think about risks or challenges, I would actually turn them into opportunities, because as we're going through and partnering with these amazing brands to bring this type of experience to life, something that's the core of our brand is inclusivity. And I think something that we're learning throughout the process is all around the data that we're pulling in, right? So as we do what we call, wear testing events and ensure that products are being fit on individuals and capturing these shapes, there's a market out there where, certain sizes are not covered, whether it be, on the larger bust sizes or, more petite women. There are areas in the mix where, there's either not product for them or they don't feel as inclusive when they're shopping with certain brands. Normally you kind of have like the standard image of when you look at, poster models and stuff, and something that's very unique about Savage is, they're very big on inclusivity. So we kind of help in the data space. We're really trying to understand where are the gaps, like where are individuals that are coming to shop for certain sizes that either we don't produce or we don't carry. And we really take that information back to the client, and we really work with them to, make sure that the individuals that are in their area, in their societies, in their communities are all feeling, welcomed, and they have a place to shop, and, they have clothing that they can find that fits their sizes. So that, I think that's definitely a challenging area for the business side of the house, but I think is something strong that we bring to the table in terms of just being able to really understand the data, the customers, and the products that are, the products that we're producing, and trying to fill those gaps where we can.
Great, thank you. And Steve, challenges that Ready Set has run into?
Yeah, I think for us, it's any time, and let's be clear, virtual reality is nothing new, right? This is conceptually 100-year-old technology we're talking about here, right? It's just we're just at a point where it's modernized, it's conceptually old, functionally new. But I think at the end of the day, for us, it's trying to reduce anxiety, tensions, things that result from being unfamiliar with developing technologies and building solutions, leveraging those emerging technologies in real time. So you have to break down more barriers and create more clarity and really reduce any kind of participatory anxiety that persists, just overcome the human behavior side of things. And then you have to clearly state a value proposition and a path to integration for these entities that are so large and have such scale that they've really been, operationalized for every single efficiency and things that aren't thought about anymore. And you have to drive a lot of clarity around how you can fit in and save time, or in our world, speed up processes, right? And make them less costly. Make them, how do I make the steps necessary to get to decision making less fragmented, less cumbersome, less costly, and less time consuming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Adam, anything to add?
Well, I'll say that the main thing that we've seen is, especially with a lot of our clients, is that if your technology, especially related to the user experience and creating those frictionless experience for your end customers, is not where it needs to be, you're clearly going to get left behind. I mean, we've seen a litany of brands that have fallen short of making their customers happy, and all of the evidence is just by looking at even things as obvious as the App Store reviews around an experience that users are going through. And one of the things that's very apparent with, especially during COVID, is that people have a bit more time to spend online and in interacting with digital brands, and they're also a lot more vocal and have the opportunities to give their feedback more often. And if you do not have a top-notch experience, it's going to be difficult for you to compete. And the other thing I would say is that a lot of times what we get asked, especially as we're consulting with different organizations, is, how should we handle this kind of double Dutch effect of the spikes with COVID, and are we going to get back to normal, or should we be aiming for a stronger digital experience, or the brick and mortar, is that ever going to rebound? And the answer is yes to all of it, right? I mean, there's the scenario is that we're going to be coming on an era where everything really needs to be hyper catered towards not just an individual user experience, but meeting them in the period in time and points of time that will allow them to interact with your brand in the most robust way. So it's the user experience holistically, just not just on the digital side, but even in the retail stores, is something that has to be reevaluated on a more an increased frequency from an evaluation perspective.
Yeah, and we see that the physical store environment is integrating, or is working to integrate, a lot of these digital technologies for a more customized shopping experience. If anyone has seen, the Farfetch store of the future, you walk in and they immediately, you scan your QR code and they immediately know your search history, your purchase history, your sizes, what you're interested in. They know your name. So it feels like you are shopping with a best friend rather than being sold, something by a sales associate that needs to make a commission or needs to make a quota. And so all of that is really great. And for us as consumers, it makes the shopping experience, we look at that user experience is much more efficient, it's convenient, it's exciting. But then as we step back and take a look at it, we know that the more integration of technology, whether it's body scanning, if it's facial recognition, if it's beacon technologies, alternative realities, we have all of these questions about privacy and how is our data being used. And so I think that's something that's always at top of mind for consumers. And so is that something, that each of you could speak to in terms of, what your company is doing to protect the user's data and address those privacy issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can definitely take this one first. So this is a famous question that we do tend to get asked a lot. I think the core thing here is our capability is actually founded on this entire concept of privacy. When an individual gets in front of the actual phone and does a 3D scan, we take absolutely no images, no photos, no videos, nothing is uploaded to the cloud. We house all of your information on your own device. And what we pull from that is what we call as our avatar, but it's basically like a cloud of reference points based on your entire shape. So it's really crucial for, this point here is because, we really understand this concept of privacy and how, everyone, is sensitive about that type of information, and how, we don't want that type of information out in the world. On top of that, the concept, or really our mission, right, at the end of the day, is to help you find what fits you best. It doesn't have anything to do with, your facial or how you look or how you feel. And even if you take a glance at your avatar, it is a little shape of your body, but you can't see your face, your skin tone, your color. So a lot of it's really based on that, and that's really what we truly believe to our core values. We do not upload any of that information, and we don't think it's necessary for our purposes either. Nor do we sell certain type of information to different clients or business partners. It's really not. We're really not in that space, but we really are baked on, just giving you a really good customer experience as it relates to finding your best fit. And again, the data aspect of it is something that we're really strongly about, and it's something that we don't collect and share with anyone because it is stored on your device.
Okay. Yeah.
Kate, I can, Steve, you want to go? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Melissa.
For Touche, since we're trying to create a community, one of the things that we've really thought about is data collection. And we think about the community of, these are really customers that brands would want to speak to and would want to have information on. So we've decided to create a think tank and put our users in the driver's seat and allow them, if they want to, opt in to be available to work with brands for focus groups, shop-alongs, surveys, whatever, but that they're in the driver's seat. We're not releasing their data. They would be releasing their own data through us and would be compensated for it. So that's part of our overall mission. However, just as a side note, in doing the focus groups with Kate's class at Columbia, we talked a lot about data privacy. And what I just found interesting overall, having worked on CRM at Hugo Boss and at Ralph Lauren, and really understanding data privacy, the students, now you have to remember, they're students today, they're Gen Z, they've been around computers their entire lives. Online shopping is, seamless to them. They know no other way. They were very open about giving up data privacy in that for user experience. So they were very, very transactional about it. I give up my information, my data, but I get a better user experience for it, and I'm okay with that. When you think about the older generations, I think it's part of our learning of being comfortable with tech and giving up some privacy information. So I think it's generational, and it will continue to change as we evolve.
Yeah, that's in large part, that's a great point, kind of something I was going to comment on, is that, setting aside the legislative part of this, right, the compliance part of this is there has to be an expectation. We want this line between our fears around the perception of leveraging data to manipulate and this quest or under opportunity space of personalization, right? That's the dance that we dance all the time in this space. I think for us, from our side of things, let's face it, we all envision of e-commerce future where leveraging behavioral data and preference data and just historic transactional data is going to inform and be able to personalize that experience that you have that's tailored specific for you in an immersive virtual commerce environment. What's the point of taking all the best things that are a part of e-commerce or digital commerce and all the best and most intuitive things from physical commerce and smashing them together to provide a comprehensive solution if you have to avoid tailoring that solution or optimizing that solution specific to each individual user, right? And so I think at the end of the day, Melissa's point is spot on. You have to drive value to it. It can't be, you have to position it such that value comes through leveraging of that personalization, and younger generations see that value. Older generations may remain skeptical, but in either case, it can't be presented or harvested as a means of manipulation, but as a means of driving value.
Yeah, and I think, as there's been several references to, generational shopping habits and Gen Z as digital natives, in what ways do you think the consumer, Gen Z as a consumer base, how will they impact, or how, what impact will they have on the retail landscape? Will our expectations for brick and mortar be minimized? Will we still see value in brick and mortar, but it will definitely be the reliance on digital technologies? Or do you think at some point they might kind of jump ship and say, I've been tied to technology my whole life and I kind of need a break. I want some of that face-to-face interaction and those one-on-one conversations. What do you guys think about that?
I think users always strive to have a differentiated experience. And I think the balance will shift to more of the retail side, especially, the next year, 2-3 years, as people get back into a bit of what we consider the norm. One of the things that I think is important to note is the ability to merge the experiences between the retail brick and mortar side with the digital one, as additional technologies get enhance those experiences, is going to be a super important piece of the puzzle. I think the other thing that in this actually, I love some of the messages that Katie's leaving in the chat here, because this actually hits on an earlier point around technology allowing retailers to ditch the sizing categories as a whole. And I think what we'll see here is that as manufacturing processes get much more sophisticated, as user experiences become much more frictionless, you will find that there'll be no notion of small, medium, large, extra large, etc. Everything is going to be a little bit more bespoke, and actually that ties back to 150 years ago, when you would source your clothes from a local retailer that essentially made it to you custom. It's interesting because I don't know if anybody's a fan of HBO's new series, The Gilded Age, but if you look at the wardrobe from the 1890s and early 1900s, everything feels like it fits everyone perfectly. And the reality is there was a point where that's how people got their clothes, and everything was bespoke, and it didn't have a huge effect from a cost perspective to have your clothes that way. It's only after the industrial age, the manufacturing, that everybody has to kind of conform to these sizes that don't necessarily fit them quite well. I'm not a medium, not a large, kind of somewhere in between. So as we get more sophisticated, I think you'll see a resurgence of some of the brick and mortar, and I think some of those bespoke experiences are gonna flourish. Not to say digital is gonna go away by any means. It's here to stay.
Yeah, and just to add on that, I loved how you actually had put that, right? So to your point, there are a lot of brick and mortar stores that are not going to be going away, right? So people do strive for, that social environment, going back to the mall, hanging out, having that type of experience, but, making a digital experience as an option for them to be able to, be online and do e-commerce shopping and be comfortable with that, it really allows the flexibility. And I do think the Gen Zs of the world, and a lot of individuals, after COVID as well, they seek for something like that, or they would actually choose to go a route where there is a digital component available for their shopping experience, as opposed to only being able to go in the stores. So I do think that, brick and mortars do have a sole role to play. But I do think that technology is also here to kind of be there alongside them and help build a full user journey. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And it's a full embedded experience. And there's a lot of shoppers out there. Everyone has different opinions on how they shop and how they want to do things. So it's really about assessing, the market and really helping serve to the different market and the consumers out there today.
Yeah, and I think something I say to my students a lot is, as fashion students, I'm sure they hear from family and friends all of the time. They say, "Oh, you're studying fashion. Retail is dying. Retail is over. What are you going to do with your degree?" And the idea is, as we know, retail is not dying. It's just evolving. We look at these digital native brands like Bonobos and Warby Parker and Reformation, and they're opening brick and mortar stores because customers see the value. But as we look at it, they are integrating things like the Warby Parker app and the virtual try-on, and Bonobos, where you're not going to walk out of the store with your garment. It's going to be sent to you, so it's reducing inventory levels. And then Reformation, a high reliance on QR codes and independent shopping, so that customers don't have to deal with a sales associate, because something I hear from my students all the time is they feel socially awkward, and it's been accelerated because of COVID, and they don't want to talk to someone because it makes them really nervous. And so Reformation has done some of these things. I guess a lot of retailers are doing some of these things to address that, to still get people shopping, but to make sure that they're shopping in a way that is comfortable and convenient for them. So we're just about at 6:20, and I think it's been great to see questions coming up in the chat. And I know, Katie, we have a question to touch on. But for the rest of you, if you do have questions, since we have about 10 minutes left, please make sure you add those to the chat. And as we wrap up with our last couple of questions, we'll make sure that we can get to some of those questions as well. So one question that Katie had asked is looking at accessibility of technology, and to say, she said, are these types of technologies accessible for small independent retail shops? For example, is FitMatch going to be mainly available for corporate brands, or how can these indie designers stay competitive in the marketplace?
Yeah, and I would say absolutely not. Our goal is obviously to reach out to as many consumers and be able to, find that fit. So corporate or not corporate, that I can promise you is not our mission at all. We're definitely talking to a lot of brands that are interested on the smaller scale as well as the larger scales, that ones that don't even have stores or brick and mortar stores, that are only e-commerce, as well as the ones who have many, many stores. So we are definitely looking to find, a great partner to help do this, really understand their consumer base and be able to reach out and scale over time. But it's definitely not focused on corporate brands only. We love everyone, and we're willing to, definitely partner with everyone that we can.
Right. Thank you, Asna. And as we talk about the future of retail, and we've addressed the idea of phygital retail, the integration of physical brick and mortar environments that rely on digital technologies. We look at all the different ways that retail is expanding, and so Adam, as we look at the future of shopping, can you tell us more about digital twin and Web 3.0?
Absolutely. So if you think about 2.0, Web 2.0 is all about the exchange of information, especially as it relates to content being created by users, user-generated content. If you think about 3.0, it's really all around that the bespoke experience, and having emerging technologies such as machine learning and artificial intelligence and blockchain create a much more personalized experience as you navigate the web. One of the things that EX3 Labs specializes in is kind of combining the blockchain technologies with even things like augmented reality and digital twins. And digital twins have often been associated with machinery, but as mentioned by my fellow panelists, there are scenarios where you can have a 3D avatar or digital twin of yourself, or being able to have a digital twin of a piece of clothing, or a piece of furniture that can kind of mirror the activity of what's taking place. You think about like something as simple as a refrigerator and how it operates. There's a lot of moving parts behind the scene. The efficiency levels, being able to kind of control that directly from an app at any given moment. I think about the Web.0, EX3 Labs' vantage point is that there will be a future in which you go to a website, and instead of seeing a series of models that look nothing like you, you will be able to superimpose yourself on a site. This is technology we're working on right now, and it's really compelling because it would offer that personalized experience. So no longer will you be seeing and everyone else, and you can actually try things on directly within an individual site and essentially try on all those clothes digitally and see yourself within those scenarios. There's a lot of 3D technology that's enabling this as well. So it's an exciting time, and I think digital twins is certainly going to be the future. And it applies not just to retail, but any way we think about things like healthcare and the way patients and doctors interact and kind of monitor your health, right? It applies to other areas such as education and collaboration and remote learning and things like that. So I'm very bullish on digital twins, and I think the 3.0 experience, the metaverse, is not necessarily going to manifest itself as far as every single individual wearing a headset. I think that's a way future and kind of more of a dystopia kind of universe. But I think in a scenario where you can superimpose yourself into sites, I think that's something that's going to happen sooner than later.
It's so exciting. I mean, it's really cool to see how we continue to have more customized and personalized experiences based on our level of interest. We have just a couple minutes left, so I'll say for my final question, I would love to get each of your thoughts on the future of shopping. So as we look at big picture, what can we expect? What's possible? Because for a lot of us, Web 3.0 and NFTs, all of that seems so beyond what we're doing right now. That from people who are in it, we'd love to hear your thoughts about big picture.
Sure, I'm happy to go first. So I think really up until this point, the future of shopping and the future retail, and Adam touched on this, extensively, is, it's all about trying to make choice that accommodates the largest percentage of the volume, right? It's not about, it wasn't enabling personalization. Now we start to enable personalization as a first step through sort of suggestive methodology, sort of curated content, sort of what's presented before us based on historic behavior. I think, moving forward, it's this idea that those same technologies that help us to predict how to maximize one thing across variations and suggest that one thing more specifically are going to be about why do I have to fit into somebody else's construct of business decision that they've made? How can I leverage technology to create my own sense of self, to fit into the marketplace in a way that benefits me, not being sort of just subject to the whims or manifestations of the marketplace, using technology to develop a sense of self within the marketplace that allows me control over of who I am and how that marketplace serves me. And I think broadly, in an umbrella level, technology is going to get us there. And the body scan isn't going to be as much about, I think Adam's point isn't going to be as much about where do I fit best within an array of options. It's going to be, well, we've solved last mile, and we've solved logistics, and we've solved just-in-time manufacturing, we've solved all of these other things. Every piece of clothes that fit my body type were manufactured specific to that digital self.
Yeah, great, thank you. Anyone else want to share your big picture predictions?
I think it's just we continue to evolve, and as each generation gets involved, you look at how the retail landscape has changed with millennials, and that they really brought, and as Adam was talking about, content to the forefront, because as brands emerged that were giving back to communities, that really resonated with that generation. And now you've got an entire group. Most brands have some sort of social conscience, whether it's giving back to a local charity, how they're sustainable. They are more conscious of what they're doing. It's not just about selling clothes, right? It's about how they're affecting their entire world and their consumers' world. How they can be transparent, and how they can be part of their community. So I think that will continue to evolve, that transparency of where the goods are made, how they're made, um, uh, what's in, what are they made of, how are those things sourced. And I think there could be some sort of resurgence of bespoke as we get more and more personalized. But I think it's really about transparency and community, and evolving together, and making sure that we are servicing the customer in what their needs are. And it's like the sky's the limit. It's really quite an exciting time.
Yeah, I agree.
Just to add on to that, I think personalization is key, right? So as we talk about, the consumer's buying power and how things are changing and how we want to, go from, the in-store shopping to allow for e-commerce and that digital connection, you really need to kind of take a step back and assess, what is that user experience? What is that journey that we're still trying to target? From our perspective, having a product, again, that allows you to go in and you can do it from your own home, but access different brands all in one location is significant, right? You don't have to make these 3 separate stops or go to 3 separate websites to do this, right? We have that type of data. And I think the data play here is key. It's really about assessing the metrics that we have and understanding the consumers. And then to your point, Melissa, understanding the products that are being made, what are we missing? What are fabrics? What are styles that are just not working? Reduce that wastage, reduce the returns, just being able to kind of also help the environment in a way. I don't think, or at least I didn't initially too. So when you think of technology and me scanning someone, your mind doesn't necessarily go into saving wastage and returns and what are companies doing, but there is a whole ecosystem around it, right? So there's definitely a purpose for what we do, and it impacts everyone. It's just not the consumer, it's the brands and it's the overall environment. So we're really passionate about this, and the limit, it is definitely endless. Everything from being able to scan at home to having digital avatars, doing virtual fittings online, having yourself on a screen and trying on a dress, and not being able to kind of leave your house to do that, right? So it's definitely the future. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, this is really exciting, and I see we are a little bit over on our time. So I'm going to, I want to say a big thank you to our panelists. You are all doing such amazing things, and it is a really exciting time to be involved in both retail and tech. So thank you for sharing your expertise with us. And I will pass it back to Lori as we wrap it up.
Thank you, Kate and panelists. It was fascinating. And I think to myself, of course, from a fashion perspective, I love bespoke if it fit. I hate the guessing game and things like that. And I feel like price-wise, as I think the retailers probably can be more affordable than perhaps what you might see in Gilded Age, and the cost of some of those, dresses and outfits and things. But I also love the idea that, when I was watching the video from Ready Set, And the idea that these manufacturers or large brands like a Hershey's or Clorox or whoever it is, that they're thinking about me, and they're thinking about my experience, and that I'll feel that. It's a feeling, right? When I either if it's brick and mortar or online, that I'm going to feel met at where I'm at. And so that's what I love about this topic today and where we're going with the future of shopping.